Hey, Yvonne here, succession planning expert, executive coach, and the creator of Succession app. Today we're going to talk about the board contribution curve. Exceptional boards will have a good balance of newer board members who have been on the board for a while, and longer-term board members who may be leaving due to retirement or just the end of their term. We look at these individuals or groups of individuals as being in different phases of board service. And we can illustrate this through a board contribution curve. The board contribution curve has three phases, as you can see. There's a learning phase, there's a lifting phase, and there's a leaving phase. The learning phase is for newer board members. These are people who just started on the board and sometimes are people who have been on the board for up to 3 or 4 years. They're maybe still in the learning phase. I gave a presentation not that long ago, and I asked the participants there, they were all board members, who of them had been on the board for at least 5 years. A number of them raised their hand. And I said, well, how long do you think it took you to feel comfortable being on the board? And a lot of them said 2 or 3 years, or even 4 years, but 2 or 3 was the most common response. So when we look at this learning phase, we're really looking at people being on the board for their first 1 to 3 years, learning. Lots of times at board meetings, they're listening more than participating. Maybe they're asking a lot of questions. I had somebody call me yesterday. It was a board chair, and he said one of his newest board members called him and said, "Am I asking too many questions at the board meeting?" And he said, "No, we want you to ask questions." And yes, that is exactly true. You do want your newer board members, to ask questions. And you have to expect that. So how long do people stay in that learning phase? It depends on the board. Some boards will accept board members very quickly and respect and trust them and get them to the lifting phase fairly quickly. Other boards, they may take a little bit longer to accept the newer board members and their opinions. And so it may take a little bit longer. It depends on the board culture. After getting out of the learning phase, you can see at the top of the bell-shaped curve, we have the lifting phase. This is when the board members are most active on the board. They may be in a leadership role on the board, either on the chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, one of the leadership positions, or they may be chairing they may be chairing a committee of the board. They are well respected, they're very engaged, they attend all the meetings, which everybody should, but these are very active people who are in the lifting phase. You stay in the lifting phase as long as you are not 2 to 3 years out from leaving the board. So as soon as you get to the point where you're anticipating leaving, a board member's anticipating leaving 2 or 3 years from then, that's when they start getting to the other side of the curve, which is the leaving side, the leaving phase. And in the leaving phase, people are still very active, still attending board meetings, still engaged, asking questions, but they may no longer be in a leadership role on the board. They may not be a leader of a committee, they may be a member of a committee, and they're still active, but they're in that leaving phase. During the leaving phase, when you have individuals in there, and hopefully you don't have a whole group at one time, but when someone starts getting to that leaving phase, you need to, as a board, start looking for new board members. Start getting them trained. Maybe you have them as board associates. but you need to start looking for new board members. So what can you do to make sure that you have a balanced learning, lifting, and leading board contribution curve? Well, first thing you can do is go ahead and take a look at your board and where do your members fit? Do you have a lot of people in the learning phase? Do you have a lot of people, hopefully not, in the leading phase? Or do you have a fairly good balance? What I've been seeing out there, because of a lot of the baby boomers retiring, is I'm seeing a lot of boards having a lot of people in that leading phase, and they don't realize it unless they actually take action and look, evaluate their board to see where everybody is on that board contribution curve. You also want to create a formal board succession plan. When you create a formal board succession plan, you're actually asking each of your board members to anticipate when they might be leaving the board. And you're also asking them to rate their expertise on all the competencies that you'd like to see on the board. When you have a good board succession plan, you can actually see on the graph if you are going to have a lot of people leaving at one time. And you don't want to have that. So the more you know, the better it is, the more action you can take. You also want to have a really good onboarding program at your organization so that you can easily get your newer board members up to that lifting phase as soon as possible. So I encourage you to take a look at your board, compare where your board members are on the board contribution curve. I've included a PDF copy of the board contribution curve below for your convenience. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button below to get information on succession planning, what you need to know.